Hi John, this is Mike from Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, and this is your Singer 401A. She is an excellent machine in good condition. She's just come off the restoration bench, and she's running and sewing great. So this is the final test before we pack her up to ship her out, and we're going to go through the basics with you and show you how to wind a bobbin and how to thread the machine and how to work the various controls, just to kind of get you started. And then we'll probably post this video to YouTube so that other people that have the same machine and don't know how to use it can watch and learn as well. So we're going to start by threading a bobbin, and actually we're going to start by winding a bobbin, and then we'll show you how to insert it. So this is your bobbin, and your bobbin winder is over here. Push your bobbin onto the bobbin winder all the way, and it's just a snug fit. There's no line-up pin or anything on this one. Just push it on there. Your thread spool goes down here on this spool pin, and it goes under the discs of the bobbin winder tensioner and up into the bobbin and through the little hole in the bobbin. See right there? From the inside out. So you want to have your thread going out through the little hole. Put it on the bobbin winder, and while you hold on to the little tail that comes out of the hole, put a few wraps of thread on just to hold the thread in place while you wind the bobbin. And then you can cut the little tail off. Then bring your bobbin winder all the way up so that the rubber tire contacts the hand wheel. And in the center of the hand wheel, you'll find a chrome knob, which is your clutch knob. You turn that chrome knob a quarter turn towards you, and that releases the hand wheel so the wheel can turn without cycling the whole machine. It'll just turn the bobbin winder. So now we're ready to go, and you don't have to go fast. In fact, the faster you go, the more chance you have of a tangle or a snarl or something. We're not going to put a whole lot of thread on, since this is just for a test. Then remember to reclutch your machine by making the clutch knob snug, and put your bobbin winder away. It goes down so it's no longer in contact with the hand wheel. When you put it on, you're going to want the thread coming off the top of your bobbin in this direction. There's already a bobbin in here, and there are 3 more like it. So I guess I should mention that I put together a little accessory set for you. Some sewing feet and a few stitch pattern cams, a couple sewing machine screwdrivers. And the stitch pattern cams most likely correspond to one of these patterns in here. But I'm told by people that are really serious sewers that the discrete cams make actually a finer pattern. So you can play around with that and see if you can get better effect using the drop-in cams. This, you may not be able to see it, but this is a chart of some of the built-in stitches that you can use. But we'll get to that. The thread's coming off the top of the bobbin to the left. Drop it in the bobbin case in the center of your hook here, and there's a little notch here in the side, a little slot that you put your thread down into, and that pulls it under the flat leaf of the tension spring and adds a little bit of tension to your thread. And you close your slide plate, and you can put your thread in the little, this is actually a screwdriver slot. Ooh, I can feel it. If you feel a tiny tingle coming off of your slide plate, that means that you need to unplug your plug and turn it over. This was made before the days of polarized plugs, so you have to do your own polarizing. There, the plug has been reversed and there's no more tingle. So this little hole here is actually for your excuse me. This little hole in the side plate is actually for your tiny screwdriver, for if you ever want to adjust the tension on your bobbin. It's rare that you ever want to do that, but if you ever need to do so, that's where you do it. It's a tiny screw in the side of that little leaf spring on the side of your bobbin case. Now we're going to thread the machine. Put your thread on the spool pin on top. Oh, and in the box there's a additional spool pin that you can add if you want to run 2 threads at once, which is one of the cool things you can do with this machine. Go into your upper thread guide, down between the discs of the tensioner, and there are 2 sets of tension discs. It doesn't matter which slot you use. Pull your thread all the way up until it goes into the notch here, and when you pull up, if it's in right, you'll see your check spring go up and down when you pull the thread. From the check spring you go up and catch this thread guide. Then you want to go through your take-up lever from right to left. Down into this thread guide. This thread guide. This thread guide, and finally to this thread guide that's down here. Oh no, it's up here. We already caught it. So this is the last thread guide, and then you go through the eye of the needle from the front towards the back. And I like to cut a nice clean end on my thread before I try to put it through the needle. Otherwise, the little frayed edges will make the thread deflect and miss your needle hole and make it really hard to thread your needle. Now to bring up your lower thread, it's up I realize, but you want it to go down and come back up through the needle hole here, the hole in the needle plate. To bring up your lower thread, you hold the needle thread loosely and you turn the hand wheel towards you 1 full revolution, and the needle takes the thread down, wraps it around the bobbin, and brings up the lower thread with it when it comes up. So make sure you come all the way to the top of your cycle and you'll see your thread pop up. Put your thread between the toes of the presser foot and towards the back of the machine, and you're threaded up and ready to sew. Now before you sew, let's go over some of the controls. This is your stitch length. In the center, where it says fine, just above fine actually, at the top of fine, is your 0 position, where the needle goes up and down, and the feed dogs, the little teeth down here, move, but they don't move the fabric. As you go down from that position, further and further down, your stitches get longer and longer and longer and longer until at the very bottom, those are your longest stitches. For reverse, you go from 0 up. And as you go up, your stitches get longer and longer and longer in reverse. If you want your stitches to be the same length in forward and in reverse, there's a little, there's a guide you can set. Like, say we want to have 10 stitches per inch in the forward direction. Tighten the knob down until it contacts 10 in the forward position. Then, when you go into reverse, we'll go the same distance up, and your stitches in reverse will be the same length as your stitches in forward. But for now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it all the way open so we can go all the way from longest forward stitches to longest reverse stitches. In the center here where it says fine, this is for your really close stitches. Like if you're doing some fancy stitches here, you may want your threads to be really, really close together. So you're going to want to have a really short stitch length. But the thing about that is, in order to sew really fine, close stitches, you need a different kind of presser foot that has a little channel along the bottom. Because if you put the threads really close together, I'm talking about a zigzag stitch where the needle is going back and forth and making little lines. If you get those really close together, they start to kind of hump up a little, and then they get caught under the presser foot, and your fabric doesn't move, but the needle keeps going up and down and building up threads until you build a big wad underneath the needle plate and everything stops. You have to get out your scissors and clip, 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 and get that mess out of there. So practice with it. You'll soon see how fine you can go with this regular zigzag foot. But start, somewhere for regular fabric, regular stitches, somewhere around 10 stitches per inch, maybe 12. That's your stitch length. Your stitch width, how far they zig and zag, is this lever here. 0 is straight stitch, 3 is medium width, and 5 is your longest zigzag stitch. And your zigzag is something you're going to set with these, and we'll get to these. While you're in straight stitch mode, which you'll see on your chart here is A and K. This knob here does A through J, and this knob in the back does K through R, and your special drop-in bobbin stitches. While you're in the straight stitch mode, which is push in and put that one on A, make sure it puffs back out all the way or you won't be able to move the other one, and you pull the back knob towards you and go all the way down to K. So AK is straight stitch. Now while we're in straight stitch, this lever that I call the zigzag lever is your needle position lever now. If you want to sew with the needle towards the left side of the slot, a straight line to the left, put it in the 0 position. If you want it a straight line in the center, move it to the 3 position. If you want your needle to sew on the right side, you push it all the way over to 5. You may be able to see the needle move back and forth as I set that. And I don't know if you sew or not. Making parallel lines like that is something that you may want to do at some point, but not anything to worry about if you're just getting started. If we want to do a zigzag stitch, and we're going to go over this again later too, because we're going to change these settings as we go. If you look at your chart here, the setting for a zigzag stitch is B and L. So we're going to push the outer knob in, go down to B, make sure it comes all the way back out. Pull the inner knob towards you and go up to L. And again, make sure that it sets back in, because if it doesn't, the little followers that are on the built-in cam can't follow the pattern and make it zig and zag. Close your lid. Now that we're in zigzag, this 0 is still a straight stitch, no zigzag. 3 is a medium zigzag. 5 is a full zigzag, and you can go anywhere in between and set your width to whatever you want. We're going to start the demonstration with a straight stitch, so I'm going to leave it in 3 so our needle's in the center position of the slot, and I'm going to set it at A and K for a straight stitch. We're going to sew a straight stitch in the center of the slot. This knob here, this dial, is your thread tension. That's how much drag it puts on the thread, and that determines how tightly the take-up lever pulls up the stitch after it's made and tightens the knot on each stitch. And for the most part, you want to be right around 3 for regular sewing, regular fabric, regular thread. For something a little heavier, you may need a little more tension. If you're using a thicker thread, you may have to adjust up or down depending on what you're using. But basically for now, just stay in 3 and you'll be right in the ballpark. This knob on top here is the pressure adjuster for your sewing foot. If you loosen it way up, you can hear it's got a little less slap when it comes down. If you tighten it way down, you can hear it's got a better thunk. But you're going to want to be somewhere right around in the middle between upper and lower. And it's not an exact science, but just make sure it's working for you and that it's moving the fabric with authority, but it's not digging in and gouging your fabric or anything. The only other control is one that you want to use occasionally, which is to raise your throat plate here. And what this does is it lifts the plate up so that you can move your fabric around without without the teeth of the feed dog contacting the fabric and moving the fabric. So the teeth will move, but it doesn't touch the fabric, so you can move around the fabric to mend or embroider or whatever you want to do. And then when you want to take this plate off, which you'll want to do regularly, and brush out the dust and lint around these feed dogs, pop it all the way up. Then you want to make sure that the teeth of your feed dogs are down as far as they can be, otherwise you're going to have a heck of a time getting that plate to slide out. But again, that's something for later. So we're in straight stitch mode, center position, and I have brought some fabric here. This is some denim from some Carhartt work jeans, so it's a fairly heavy denim. And position your fabric under the presser foot. Use the lever in the back here to lower the sewing foot onto the fabric, and hold your threads for the first couple of stitches. Why do I only see one thread? Somehow I pulled my needle thread out of the needle. Into that thread guide, that's thread guide, and again through the eye of the needle. Between the toes of the presser foot towards the back. Put your fabric under the presser foot. Use a little lever in the back to lower the presser foot. Hold your threads for the first couple of stitches so it doesn't pull out of the needle or get sucked down on the fabric. And press gently on your foot control. And you see that the machine is moving the fabric. I don't have to move the fabric at all. In fact, if I were to push the fabric, try to help it along, chances are good that I will flex this thin needle, and the needle will miss the needle hole and hit the needle plate, break the needle, maybe put the machine out of time and all sorts of stuff. You don't want it to happen. So you want to guide your fabric so it goes where you want it to go, but let the machine do the moving. Leave your needle in the fabric, and you can use it as a pivot to turn. Okay, we're going to change to a zigzag foot. Or wait, before we go to zigzag, and I didn't mean foot, before we go to zigzag, let's mess with the tension a little, let's mess with the stitch length a little bit. That was a fine stitch in at about, looks like it's about 13 stitches per inch. I'm going to give it a little longer stitch, and you'll see the fabric's going to move faster now because the stitches are longer. Now I'm going to move it all the way down to really long stitches. You'll see that the fabric's really going to move fast now. I'm going to go all the way up for reverse, forward, reverse, and shorter stitches in reverse, longer stitches in reverse, short stitches in forward, long stitches in forward. Let's see, zigzag. Should we do a zigzag? When you change any of the settings that are going to make your needle bar move, like going from straight stitch to zigzag, going from right position to middle position or middle to left position, you want to make sure your needle is up out of the fabric. Otherwise, as the needle bar moves, it can bend your needle. You don't want that. Again, a bent needle will mess up your stitches, and if it's really bent, it can miss the needle hole and again break the needle and all sorts of bad stuff. So If you'll remember, our setting for zigzag was B with the outer knob, and L with the inner knob. And again, make sure that they snap back into their positions. And I'm going to just make it a full width zigzag. And we'll do kind of short stitches. Could go faster if we wanted, but we don't need to. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a nice clean looking zigzag. Now I want to do a satin stitch, which is where instead of a diamondy zigzag, it's the stitches are just laying right next to each other in a nice straight line, and it makes a nice wide stitch. But if you remember, I can't go too far into the fine zone without the thread balling up under the presser foot. So here we go. I'm going to go up to about there. You just want to check and make sure that your fabric is actually moving. If your fabric is not moving, then your stitch is too tight and then too close together, and you'll have to do a little bit longer stitch length until you find a satin stitch foot to use for this process. Now, I'm hoping you can see this. This is the wider, the longer stitch length zigzag, where the stitches are further apart. This is closer together. It's more like a satin stitch, although it's not quite a satin stitch because you can see the space between them. These are your straight stitches here. This is where we reversed. And of course, we're going to want to do some fancy stitches. So making sure your needle's up out of the fabric, we're going to consult our handy chart here. And what do we want to do that's different? Let's do some little diamonds. I guess they're not diamonds. I guess they're spear points. Arrowheads? Yeah, arrowheads is good. For that, we want B and N as in Norman. So we're already on B with the outer knob. We're going to pull out the inner knob and go up to N. Now again, we want to be in a fine stitch, as fine as you can, where your fabric's still moving. When you get that satin stitch foot, I don't have one or I would include it. Once you get that satin stitch foot, you'll be able to make nice, close, beautiful patterns. Oh, and I should have mentioned, set it on 3 for this. Your chart here tells you for these stitches down here that we're using. Oh, I see. For these stitches in the lower level, you want to set your lever at 3. I guess for these stitches up here, which are called your primary patterns, you can actually control the width of your stitch on these. And you can do other things. Look in your manual, it'll tell you all about this stuff. I'm more of a technician than a seamster, so mostly what I know is from sewing test strips. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go up all the way up to 5 on that since we can. Making sure your needle's out of the fabric. When you lift the presser foot, it opens the tension, so it's no longer putting drag on your thread, which makes it easier to pull your project out without bending the needle. Oops. This is that arrowhead pattern we just sewed. This is where I had it set on 3. And they're real short. These are the ones that are set on 5. And again, they look kind of open and washed out because the stitches aren't as close together as they could be. I'm going to see if I can bring those a little bit closer together. That means bringing our stitch length up just a tiny bit more, making sure the fabric still moves. Hold your threads. Can't really tell if the fabric's moving or not. Now, fabric was not moving, so I got a knot on the back there that, if I'd kept going, would have made the fabric stick. So I better come a little bit longer on those. Still a little bit too close. Got a wad of thread going there. That happens. Not a big deal. Sometimes you can reach under here and clip it from the front. See, another knot of thread there. You can find that satin stitch foot on eBay. If not, your local sewing store will have one. Just tell them you need it for a Singer slant needle machine. They'll know exactly what you need. Okay, diamonds are getting boring. Let's do something else. All right, let's do something from the combination patterns down here in the bottom row. And I like this one. Let's do H and L. Let's see. Make sure your needle is up out of the fabric. Move this one to H and this one to L, and I see I already did that because I tried this one a minute ago. Okay, so holding your threads, we're on H and L. Let's see if I can get a little bit. You can guide your fabric. I just haven't had a lot of reason to guide the fabric here, so I haven't been paying a lot of close attention to it, but you can guide it so it goes in nice straight lines or curves or however you like it. And this is that HL pattern. Let's do one more pattern just for fun. fabric, and always turn the hand wheel towards you. Never turn it the other direction. Let's see. I and P is kind of cool. Yeah, let's do I and P. Press in, go down to I, pull out, go all the way up to P. And so, there we go. Where are my, oh, my threads are already held. They don't have to go in straight lines if you don't feel like it. So that's it. John, I want to thank you for supporting the work that we do here. It's a pleasure working on these great machines. It's a real pleasure having money come in to support it. If you're coming here from somewhere else on the internet, you found this video, we are Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine Restoration. We are on Stagecoach Road, so we are stagecoachroadsewing.com. stagecoachroadsewing.com. And if you visit our site, you'll be able to see hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of beautiful machines that we've restored over the last 20 some years. And you'll see photos from all different angles, and you'll see a little bit of information about each machine. And at the top of the page, there'll be a few, maybe 15 or 20 machines that are restored, but they are available to come home with you to your sewing room. So stop and see us. Again, that's stagecoachroadsewing.com, and we thank you for watching. Bye-bye.